The legend, Jeff Mills. He did not know that.
That is definitely Coleman writing that. Okay, so to start out, I'm going to mention a couple of things that may or may not disappoint you about today's lecture. Number one, if you came to see that clean-cut guy in the suit on our original slide, that's not me anymore. COVID killed him. I work from home now. I don't have to worry about stuff like that. I hope that I never have to wear a tie again. So now I am the web developer with the job over there. You can see it looks a little more like me. I found this the other day. Number two, if you guys don't like internet memes, you're gonna have a bad time today. This slideshow is full of them. But a little about me, they mentioned some of it. Been a designer and web developer for over 20 years. I think I actually built my first website, this terrible little thing on my old blue iMac in like 2000, 2001. I currently work as a senior technical analyst by day for the JLG and the Oshkosh Corporation. And for Oshkosh, that is not the one most people think of initially. I work for the other company in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, that actually is the inventor of the four-wheel drive systems we use today in our cars. They invented that in 1917. They are the parent company of multiple heavy manufacturing organizations. I work specifically for JLG. We make the first image here, which is lift equipment. But I manage the website for 10 of their other subsidiaries as well. Everything from military equipment to the cement mixers, fire and rescue, airport equipment. I actually saw, the last time we were at the Houston airport, I saw the Oshkosh logo on some of those big de-icer trucks that they have. And final thing that might be disappointing to you, back to this, is that 8 reasons your website isn't working for you was a little ambitious for a 1-hour talk. So I could go through 8 items and I could tell you all about those 8 items, but I couldn't fit into my lecture 8 things and how to fix them. And that's what I really wanted to focus on for you guys today. So we're gonna drop that to 4. And then as we have time at the end, I'm gonna go very quickly through those last 4 so you still feel like you get your money's worth today. And that's, as I was writing the speech, it also kind of occurred to me that all 8 of these things fall into one of 2 categories. And that is, category 1 is people can't find your website. And that's your search engine optimization, just all the like people aren't getting to your website. Category 2 is people can't use your website, or in most cases, people won't use your website. And this is your user experience, UX, if you've ever heard that term. And so the things we're gonna talk about today are kind of related to both, with the exception of the first item. The other 3 will actually improve both your user experience and your search engine optimization. And that is because user experience is part of Google's search criteria now for ranking your website. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into it. The one that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Google that I see a lot is that websites have no clear goals. So it's my first meme of the day. To achieve a goal, you must have a goal. And a lot of people, they have their websites out there, but there's really no plan behind it. I ask people a lot, what do you want your website to do? All right, it's like, and we'll get into a little bit about how to handle that. But the second thing I see a lot is valueless content. And so this is when you've got either no content on your website, you're not keeping updated with your content on your website, there's nothing of value for your visitors when they get there. And once you have your content, unorganized navigation, you've got to give people an easy way to get around your website and find all that content. And then finally, this one is mostly UX, but it's a big ranking factor now with Google, which is your page load speeds. And we'll talk about a couple of things that are the most common reason your pages aren't loading fast, how to fix those. So jumping right in, the first topic was no clear goals. So if you don't know what your visitors are supposed to do, how will they? Your website has one job. I love this meme. So this is 2022. Having a website out there that is nothing more than a floating brochure about your company is not doing you any good. Your website has one job. Everybody in here, unless you are running a government website that is purely informational, but I'm sure all of you people hearing your intros, your website has one job, and that is to generate revenue for your business. Simple as that. There's two ways to do that. You can do that directly by selling products directly from your website, like an e-commerce site, that sort of thing, products and services, or you do it indirectly, which is by generating leads. So converting your visitors into sales leads, getting them in front of your salespeople. Just to clarify, nobody in here is selling lawnmowers. I don't think I heard that. That's my example for everything, so it's good. Like, I always, one of these days, somebody is gonna have a lawnmower sales business or something like that, and then they're gonna think I'm talking about them the whole time. But when we start talking about your goals, the first thing I wanna talk about is your call to action. Like, your call to action is what you want your visitors to do. So if you're selling lawnmowers, like my example, if you're selling them directly online, your call to action is going to be roughly buy now. Click here, buy this, add it to your cart, buy it. If you are selling your lawnmowers in maybe a retail location, your call to action is going to be come visit the store, call us, schedule a sales consultation, something like that. But you've got to decide what your call to action is going to be. And to write a good call to action, there's a couple of things I'm going to mention. Like, the first one is give your visitors a reason to follow through with that call to action. So you can call today to schedule your free consultation, buy your lawnmower today, get 15% off, something like that. Ask yourself, what is in it for them? Because your product, no matter how great it is, your visitors aren't coming because of your great product. They're coming because, I mean, this is, again, 2022. Our whole culture revolves around what's in it for me. And when you start talking about web and like mobile apps and that sort of thing, it is really instant gratification type stuff. So what's in it for me? How can I get there as fast as I can? The second thing that makes a good call to action is to elicit an emotion. So you can have a call to action. The example I thought about for lawnmowers was your dream lawn starts here. That elicits an emotion. That's like, oh man, that's how I want my yard to look. I want it to be peaceful, fun, whatever. That elicits a good feeling emotion. The opposite of that is you can elicit a bad emotion. That doesn't necessarily not work, especially with fear, FOMO, if you guys know what that is, fear of missing out. And you see this a lot. It's the limited time offers. It's the supplies are running out. Don't miss your opportunity, all of that sort of thing. If you can elicit that emotion of fear or urgency, that'll drive people to click through, or or call you, or whatever your push is. And finally, a good call to action is going to be prominent. Everything on your website needs to point to that call to action. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean everything on your website is just a full sales pitch. This is USB. Their projector does not like Macintosh, I guess. So I don't know why it went off. Okay. Yeah. So make it prominent. Everything on your website should lead to this. So whether that is your blog posts explaining, again, back to my lawnmower presentation, idea, it's I might have a blog that has tips and tricks on summer lawn care, something like that. Throughout that blog post, you want to have links to your equipment that meets those needs that you're saying to your customer. Whether it's, again, call us today, come see our showroom, click here to buy now, add this to your cart, that sort of thing. If you have, say, video content, make sure you say in your video, call us today. You know, YouTube will let you add the little links. You can click here, you can add stuff directly to your cart that way if you do it right. And so, well, yeah, and video content, we'll talk about that a little bit more too. But everything, again, this is the whole, marketing 101, the sales funnel. Your website is a funnel. Like, you've got all this content people want to see, and you are driving them to do this one thing, your call to action. Because this is what converts your customers to, or your visitors to either a direct customer or a sales lead for your team. So the rest of these are going to be SEO and user experience. And the first one is valueless content. This is probably the most important thing you can do for SEO. Content is king. It is what your visitors come to your website for. It is what Google indexes to know what your website is about. So for your users, you want to be their resource. Ask yourself, I guess the first thing you want to ask yourself is, who are your customers? Because baby boomers and millennials surf and browse the web differently. Some people, like, if you have a very technical audience, they're more likely to read a blog post, whereas if you don't, they're more likely to watch a video. And asking your customers what they're looking for, you can talk to your customers. There are a couple of resources that I'm going to show you real quick. One is called answerthepublic.com. The other is Google Trends. Both of these links are on the handout. Actually, all the links I'm going to talk about today are on your handout, so you don't have to worry about writing them down or misspelling them like I usually do. I'm going to have to, let's see, stop the extended and change it to mirror. There we go. So this is answerthepublic.com. Refresh this page real quick. This weird little robot that I don't quite understand. But this site actually allows you to type in any subject you want out of your industry or any industry. I guess I should change this to United States. And it will tell you all the searches, all the most popular searches regarding that topic. So, lawnmowers. And takes a second to load. There we go. So that is very small, but you've got this tree. Let's see if I can zoom in a little for you guys. Well, actually gets smaller when I zoom more, but you can read some of these. So, are lawnmowers dangerous? How the lawnmowers work? Can lawnmowers explode? That's a weird one. But these are all the searches that people are doing on Google, on Bing, all that sort of thing. I believe the darker the green dot, the more people are searching for it. But this can help you decide what content to put on your website. If you can answer these questions for people, you will come up in search results. That's there are a lot of, let's see, there's a lot of information on this site. These are lawnmowers near me, lawnmower feedback, that sort of thing, comparison questions, lawnmowers versus trimmers, lawnmowers and whipper snippers. All right. And then some examples of the actual searches: lawnmowers electric, lawnmowers gas, that sort of thing. So that's one of the research tools that you can use to help decide what you want your content to be. The other is Google Trends. These are the example trends. These are the big searches right now, top 3. But you can also do the same thing. Oops, if I could type. Lawnmowers, and you can get some more insights. Where are people searching for it the most? West Virginia, apparently, has the most searches for lawnmowers. Interest over time, so here is the previous year, how many people are searching by date. And then the related queries, these are the top ones. Best lawnmowers in 2022, riding lawnmowers under $800. Harbor Freight lawnmowers, I guess that's a brand. Riding lawnmowers under $1,000. Again, these are the top queries that Google has received regarding lawnmowers. So you can search for any topic on this. So to get back to the presentation. There we go. Okay, so be the resource for this. And we'll talk about a couple other things content-wise and how to be that resource in a minute. But I do want to mention that if you are their resource, you will be Google's resource too, because Google wants to answer their customers' questions. Google's job is not to find your website. Google's job is to find the best website for their visitors' search. And if you can be that website, Google will list yours. So your site needs to answer those questions that people are searching for in order to rank in Google. And it also needs to keep answering them and keep current. And this last piece right here, out of all the things I'm going to talk about today, is going to be the hardest thing to do. This is definitely a do as I say, not do as I do. My blog hasn't been updated in years. Because this is the easiest thing to put off, but it is another of the most important things to Google. Now, Google doesn't necessarily mean they won't find your site, but they will decide that your site could potentially be less relevant than a site that has been updating itself regularly for the last year, and if you're like my site, hasn't updated in 2 years. So I start to good content. Yeah. No, go ahead.
We actually contract out and have somebody write a blog for us because we just don't have the time on our. So we'll pick different topics like whether Answer the Public or Google Trends, and we'll say, can you write about this? And they'll write something for us, and so you can always keep your content up to date that way.
Yep. And most blogging platforms will also let you write a bunch of posts and schedule when they appear on your site. So that's what I used to do, is I would try to spend one day a month or so, write about 4 or 5 posts, and schedule them to show up once a week or so. And again, I would write a whole bunch of posts, and then when those ran out, I stopped writing more. And that's a very, very easy thing to do. And that's why I wanted to mention it, because that's probably the most common mistake I see on websites. It's just not keeping it current, not keeping it updated regularly. Doesn't have to be a lot. Once every couple of weeks is fine. But you just want to keep updating it so Google says, hey, they're actively using this website. This isn't something that somebody has just left and forgot about. It's still an active website.
So adding fresh pictures or something like that would count?
Anything that, adding fresh pictures will count it would help. Make sure you use your alt tags and that sort of thing so that what Google is indexing will be updated. So, a couple of things about what is good content. This first one, rich answers. I know you guys have all seen this before, where you type a question into Google and the first thing that comes up is just the answer to your question before you even click anything. I wanted to talk about this because I've actually been reading about it recently, and it's really not that hard to get Google to index your content this way. I thought that it was going to take a lot of development. I was reading up about things like schema markup and that sort of thing, all like code stuff, not necessary. So to do this, take a list of the common questions that you think people are going to ask, using those tools that like Google Trends, or like Google Trends is a good one example for the lawnmowers, because that does sound like something I would search for, best lawnmowers in 2022. So write a blog post called, what are the best lawnmowers in 2022? And then list them out in bullet points. How do I, trying to think lawnmower related questions. How to get a lawnmower, an old lawnmower to start, so you're not pulling that cord 1,000 times. Write the blog and then include step-by-step answers in either a numbered list like this or a bulleted list. Simple, one sentence. The more simplistic you can make this, the easier it is for Google to pick it up. And the cool thing about these rich answers is even if your site doesn't rank #1 for a search, this will be at the top. It'll be above all your competitors, even if they have all the things we're not going to talk about today. They might have better domain authority, they might have better like meta descriptions and all that sort of thing. This is one of those things that content will force it to rank higher. You'll be at the top of the page. This is the first thing people will see. Now, they may or may not click into that, but it still establishes your site as the as far as an average user, this is the #1 result, basically. The second type of good content is video. And there's some things to watch for with video. We'll talk about that later, but a couple of statistics about video is users are 88% more likely to watch a video than read a blog post. And the great thing about that is they typically retain 95% of the information presented in a video, as opposed to 10% reading it in text. Which is weird to me because I am that 12% left over. I don't like watching videos because I can skim a blog post and get the information I need faster. But that is typical. The other thing about video is, again, they'll show up at the top of Google results. Most of the time I watch video content is when I'm searching for, I get stuck in a video game and I'm like, how do I beat this boss? Where do I find this item? And at the top of all the results will be just a group of videos from YouTube. Yeah.
While you're doing that, can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
So when I punch in commercial real estate, Tyler, Texas,
Mm-hmm.
on the Google hits, our website comes up #5.
Mm-hmm.
It's on a page, you have to say, see more, to get to it.
Mm-hmm.
Does it take someone like you to say, all right, if we do X, Y, and Z, we can move to the top? I mean, because we certainly have the largest presence of listings and property management in East Texas,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not reflective in us being at the top. But it may be a hard question to answer, but is that something that's...
Yeah, when you start searching for stuff like that, and especially in more competitive industries where there are a lot of other commercial real estate in Tyler, that sort of thing, then some of the stuff that we aren't going to talk about today, the things like domain authority and your meta descriptions and that sort of thing, those will make a difference and help you rank a little higher. But again, if your website, what we're going to talk about today are the big picture stuff. Like if your website didn't say commercial real estate in Tyler, Texas, somewhere, you wouldn't even rank #5. So if you can get on that first page, you're doing good. But all the little things that do need a developer are what's going to maybe move you up a little bit higher on the page for that. So last thing I'm going to mention about video is that if you are using video, consider writing transcripts for those videos and put on the page on your website with it. That just helps Google index it and know what the video is about. It doesn't, I know it's a lot of text that we just talked about no one's going to read, and they're not, but it makes it, number one, it makes it ADA compliant because screen readers can read that text, and number two, it helps Google index the video itself. And then finally, a blog, and we've talked about that a little bit already. This is still the best way to establish yourself as an expert on any subject as far as the website is concerned. And it's a great way to just keep updating content and answering those questions that we showed people searching for. So now that you've got your content, whoops, got to know how to organize it. Because if people can't get around your website, they're not going to find your content once they're there. You want them easily to be able to get what they're looking for out of your website. And the more they can get and the more you lead them into the various aspects of your website, the more sales messages you get in front of them, the more of that call to action they'll see. Because there is no GPS for your website. So navigation, by definition, is just how users are going to get around your site. Typically, that is, typically that is a menu at the top of the page, and it should be a menu at the top of the page. This is, your navigation for your website is not where you want to be clever. People expect to find it in one place. People expect it to be, well, should be intuitive, first of all. Don't, I see people that have, well, I've seen, especially web designers, they try to get really creative and have this cool think outside the box menu and organization, and maybe they have buttons all over the page, and that's not intuitive. You have to think about that. And number two, it should be where users expect to find it, and that is at the top of the page. I'll show you Marvel's website, mostly just because I'm a nerd, but the menu on this is at the very top of the page. Does anybody have a website that is in like multiple languages? Maybe, like especially like worldwide languages. Okay, so if your website is in English or Spanish, we read left to right. The first place people will look at on a page, on any page, whether it's a printed page or a web page, is the top left. We tend to skim across the top from there. So the top right is the second thing they're going to see, and then we start looking down the page one way or the other. Websites, the second place people look is usually down the left side of the page, but that is, with mobile first websites and mobile friendly websites, you'll see menus are more at the top now and less down the left side of a web page. Some older sites you may still see some menus down there, or if there's a sub menu, it should be on that side. But as far as the Marvel site goes, it's right up there at the top. The other thing that you'll notice is the names of those links. Even if you are not a comic book or Marvel movie fan, I bet you can guess what is under each one of those links just by the title that they put there. This is another thing where people try to get creative, and maybe it's a matter of how they're categorizing all the pages under their site. But you need to think about it is, the first part of this is don't make me think, and the second part is don't make me click. So I know what I'm going to as soon as I go to one of those links at the top. And a great way to decide what those should be, if you're not sure, is look at your competitors. Look at their websites, look which ones are the same. If you go to DC Comics website, those link titles are almost identical because this is what works. This is what people are looking for. And the other thing I'm going to say about it is on mobile menus, totally okay to collapse them to save your screen real estate. but use a recognizable symbol for that. Use either these 3 bars called the hamburger icon for some of you that don't know, or just a button that says menu. That's fine too, but it should be obvious. Like, this is Marvel Comics, they're not using some cool like Spider-Man symbol or like Captain America's shield or something to be the menu, even though that might look cool. But it's gonna make people think, what is that? Maybe they'll click it and it'll open the menu, but nobody's gonna look at that and say, oh, it's probably the menu. So let's see, clear names. People need to find what they're looking for on the first try, 1 click or less. If you can't organize your content into approximately 1 click to get somebody where they need to be going, then you may need to rethink your content and start simplifying it. This was something when, years ago, I worked for Brookshire's in their electronic marketing department. And this is something that we had some trouble with because there are a lot of different pages on their website, and dropping, like, the real estate we had at the time, a few years ago, we had like 5 links at the top, and that's all we had room for on the design. And we had to categorize everything under those 5 links. So you start thinking, like, what's the most important thing? Number one thing people are going to on Brookshire's website are the weekly specials. So that is the first link on their page, or it was when I worked there. I don't know if it still is. Weekly specials, here's this week's flyer. The second thing is store locations. You want that to be prominent. And then we had to categorize some other things in different ways. And there were even a few times that we put, you hover over one of those and you got your little drop-down menu. We did put occasionally some links in more than one drop-down menu because it sort of went with both. Better to have it in 2 places. Better to have that, your menu be a little redundant and not make somebody go, oh, I thought it would be there. It's not, let me try here. The more you make people click, the more they're likely to drop from your website and go back to that Google search because there's a whole page of your competitors that are on that page. So I did say there is no GPS for your website. That was a bit of a lie because there is sort of a GPS for your website, which is your website search. Now, search is something that if you don't have any kind of search on your website right now, that is going to be hard for you to implement without a developer. But if you have a website that, like most people that build their own websites, they're using something like WordPress and a WordPress theme, Drupal, Wix, something like that. All of those web builders have search built in. So if you're using a WordPress theme that doesn't have a search, maybe look into a new web theme, Drupal theme, that sort of thing. And typically you want your search to be at the top of the page. I'll go back to the Marvel real quick. Remember I said the first thing people look at is the top left. The top right is the second thing they look at, and that is where their search is. Top right. Simple icon. Again, this is the recognizable icon that has become standard for search, that little magnifying glass. So that's where your search should be. Barring that, in your footer could work. People will kind of look there, but you want it to be on every page. Because if people can't get where they think they're going to go in a click or 2, typically they'll go to the search. Sorry, kind of went over that. Should be as easy to find as your menu. And the other thing about search is that you want to track the results. So this is the first time I'm going to talk about another link on your page called Google Analytics. If you don't have some sort of analytics on your website, visitor tracking, you need to get it. It doesn't necessarily have to be Google Analytics. I mentioned that because it's free and because there's all sorts of tutorials on how to use it and how to get the most out of it. Google even has their own certification. That's a free video course you can take. It's just a few hours worth of content. but something. You need to be able to look at what your visitors are doing to be able to see what works and what doesn't. Are they going to all these posts that I'm trying to match? Are they, with searches, it's easy to track because you can, if you see what everybody is searching for, if everybody on my lawnmower website is searching for electric lawnmowers, maybe electric lawnmowers needs to be more prominent in my menu so they don't have to search for it anymore. They can get there in one click. And then last thing about navigation is that Google cares too. Google uses your site's navigation, whatever it is. They crawl your site very similar to how users crawl it. There are some other ways Google crawls it, if you guys are familiar with like sitemaps and robots.txt files and that sort of thing. But for the most part, they're going to just load one of your web pages, find all the links on that page, go to the next. And if you can keep your content more organized, and especially in like your menus, Google can crawl it easier and index it easier. And the final thing we're going to talk about today is your page load speed. So some fun facts about slow loading pages. Number one, 83% of people will leave a web page that takes over 4 seconds to load. If your home page, if your landing page takes more than 4 seconds, you have lost 8 out of 10 people and then some. You actually start losing traffic at about 2 seconds. And this is because a Microsoft study that I found while I was researching this has showed that since 2010, the human attention span has decreased from 12 seconds on average to 8 seconds. And that's only going to get worse. And if your target audience for your site skews younger, then you've got even less time than this. You might get that full 4 seconds. Maybe you only lose 75% of people if you're targeting baby boomers. Generation X, the people like us that remember 56K when everything took half an hour to load. But if you are targeting especially like Generation X, even my generation and lower, like you probably even have less than that 4 seconds. So slow loading websites, according to a Google statistic I saw, accounts for an estimated $2.6 billion in lost revenue every year. So because of slow loading web pages, people go back to Google, they click the next link and they buy from there. So it is important to Google because, again, desktop page speed has been a ranking factor for your Google results since 2010. The faster you can get your page to load, the better your Google's SEO. In 2018, they made mobile page speed also a major ranking factor because the majority of web traffic these days is mobile now. So if you are a business-to-business type website, you're probably getting a lot more desktop traffic than mobile. You're still going to get a lot of mobile traffic. But if you are a business-to-consumer, probably the majority of your traffic is going to be mobile use. So the next thing I want to talk about is how do you know how your website is performing, especially page load speeds. So Google, it's so important to Google, they give you free tools to check it. And that is there's something built into Chrome, if you use Google Chrome as a browser, called the Inspector. And if you don't, actually it's in the Inspector, it's called Lighthouse. If you don't use Google Chrome, there's a website that does the same thing. So I'm going to show you guys how that works real quick. Let me switch this back to, I got to switch this back to Mirror because I can't use my mouse. It's backwards and it drives me crazy. All right, so I'm just going to pull up my website for the first thing. So if you guys use Google Chrome, this is built in. All you have to do is right-click anywhere on the page and go to Inspect at the very bottom. And then there's a tab here called Lighthouse. I'm just going to make this a little bigger for you guys. There we go. Can you guys kind of read that now? So I can check my navigation, which is the default. It's what I usually do. You can check it on either a mobile device or desktop device. All sorts of categories you can check, and then you just analyze page load, and it's going to reload the page and basically record everything loading on the page, compute a score for you, and even give you a list of all the things that are problematic on the site. These little tips here is where I got that 2.6 billion in revenue. I don't know why that didn't come up, but you get a score. Performance is what we're looking at today. So to air it out, I don't know, something Wi-Fi or something. But this first contentful paint, what that means is this is how long it takes before there is something on your website with some sort of content. Time to interactive is how long it takes before someone is able to click on anything in your website. You can see even my website is actually, these same numbers used to be green. So they are, again, the attention spans are getting shorter. So 2 seconds and 4.9 seconds is not a good metric anymore. It's average. But then you can scroll down, and this opportunities is going to list out reasons that your website might be loading slow. You can click to read a little bit more about it and get some hints and that sort of thing. Even tells me which images are the problem. And 9 times out of 10, oh, the other thing I want to show you is, this is a link on your page as well, called pageinsights.web, or pagespeeds.web.dev. This is Google's Page Insights. It does exactly the same thing. You type in your website there, and it pulls up, and it shows you exactly the same stuff. The performance, accessibility, best practices, all that sort of thing. Gives you all the same information. You can, just like with this, you can do desktop or mobile. They are different metrics, so you want to check them both. And then, if I can get back.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So if you have a company that's built a website and is operating for you, is it reasonable to expect them as a part of the service to regularly or consistently kind of look at that and either recommend or make adjustments to improve those metrics?
Yes. Yeah, that, I mean, if you do have a company that is managing your site, and I mean, I guess it just depends on your service contract with them, but yeah, we do at JLG, we use, the biggest company we use is called SEMrush. They are kind of expensive, but they give us a weekly report of everything from the broken links they find on our website to images with missing alt tags.
To, like, I mean, it's a 20-page PDF report every week that they scan our website.
But that's a third party, it's not.
That is a third party, yeah. So there's some of our other companies use, it's typically the companies, agencies they use for content creation will do a regular, probably monthly scan, that sort of thing, make recommendations. But for the most part, when we contract to those people through JLG, they're making a lot of those content updates. So they'll make a scan, like SEMrush, that's really all they do is they scan the website and give you reports. The agencies will scan the websites or get those reports and make content adjustments. The only time I see those reports are when it is something that requires a developer to modify. So the most common thing, and you even saw it online, though it was further down the list, the most common thing that I see as causing that performance metric and those first contentful paints, time to interactivity, to be low are huge images on your website. And that is because people are more and more just using their smartphones. Digital cameras are becoming more and more, higher resolution. So taking an image out of your phone and putting it straight on your website is a bad idea now, because your phone is finally taking pictures at a much, much higher resolution than you would ever want on your website. Typical smartphone photos, according to the statistics I saw, are around 4 megabytes just for the JPEG that comes out of the phone. On a typical cellular connection, that is a 2 to 4 second download. So every photo on your page, if you're taking it right out of your phone and dropping it on your website, adds 2 to 4 seconds to that load time of your page. iPhone 13, I was looking at this because I guess that's the big, great camera that they have right now. It takes about just under 3,000 pixel wide image. Now, the most common screen resolution in 2022 is still 1920 by 1080, which means even if you have an image on your webpage that is designed to be viewed full screen, that is 30+% higher than you need to load. So the best thing you can do in that situation is make sure you crop your images to the proper size. You can use things like Photoshop, GIMP, some free tools. I think even like Windows Picture Viewer has some crop tools and that sort of thing. But if that is all like very intimidating for you, this is the next resource. It's called TinyPNG. Another link on your page. And that is this website I have a picture of here. All you do with this website is drag an image from your desktop onto that little spot. It says drop your image here, and it will go through and do some sort of magic compression and reduce the size of the image, reduce the size of your file with no noticeable loss in quality, especially when you're just viewing it on the screen. So, I was going to show you an example of this. Again, years ago, working for Brookshares, I built a website for their Golden Brook ice cream. We had one of the pages they wanted to do just a grid of every flavor they had available in Golden Brook, and every one of those flavors had a picture of the box and a picture of an ice cream cone with the flavor in it. I cropped all the pictures to exactly the same size. I did as much compression as I could do in Photoshop, and then I ran every one of these images through this TinyPNG and got an extra 20% reduced size. No quality loss. That page loaded, so the page loaded 20% faster than before I had done that. And that was maybe 20, 25 images. So if you've got, especially like if you have an e-commerce site and you have tons and tons of product images that you're having people scroll through, run it through this. Even if they're already cropped to the proper size, all you do is upload them here and then re-download them, and it'll tell you even how much size it's taking. So if you do also have a web developer, you can check into doing things like lazy loading images so that it doesn't load images that don't show on the page until you start to scroll them. You've probably seen Pinterest does that. If you start scrolling too fast, you just get those weird color blocks that take a second to load because they're not loading them until you scroll to them. But again, that's a web developer thing to do. Videos, that's another really huge file that you put on your web page. The easiest thing to do for videos is to let YouTube do the work. YouTube, Vimeo, all these like video sharing sites. You can upload your 4K video that you filmed out of your phone. Again, your phone takes way higher quality video than you need to put on your website. You upload it to there, and they will automatically make a 1080 version, they'll make a 720 version, they'll make a 420 version, and sometimes even like a 300 pixel version. And they'll serve up the right size to your customer based on their internet speed, based on their screen viewing size. If I'm viewing a 4K video that you uploaded on a 1920 monitor, there's no reason to ever show anything more than that 1080p, the old school HD before 4K. But if I have a high enough speed and a high enough resolution monitor, it will show me the 4K. But if you can't do that, for whatever, like some corporate stuff, they don't want videos out there public on YouTube or whatever, and you want to host them just on your website, there is another compression tool, much like TinyPNG, called Video.io, and it will let you upload a video. There's a lot more settings on this. So with video, there's a lot of ways to compress it. You can lower the resolution, you can lower the frame rate, you can do a lot more. There's a lot more areas that you can shave off a few megapixels here and there, or a few megabytes here and there on video. So, but this site is cool because it has video tutorials explaining how to do all of that for you, if you run into this. But my recommendation in almost any situation is to upload those to YouTube. You save yourself storage on your server, you save yourself load times on your screen, because typically they load what's called asynchronously, so they'll let the rest of the page load before they won't stop the page from loading before it loads the video. And the final thing I say about videos is never ever put them on autoplay if it is your decision. It is not always your decision, and there are some Oshkosh Corporation websites that their homepage has a big video that somebody in our, higher level than me that gets to say, do it anyway, and we do it anyway. If you are going to do it, don't have any sound. That is one of the things that we argued about until they agreed with that. But what this does is it makes your page wait to load. It starts loading the video enough that it will play before your page finishes loading, and that will decrease those performance metrics on Google. Not to mention, if you've ever opened up a web page, especially at work, and all of a sudden sound starts playing out of your speaker, nobody likes that. They're not going to say, oh, let me hit the mute button or find how I can pause this video. They're going to close that page and go back to Google. So those are the 4 things I want to talk about today. We are right at time. So I'm going to really, really fast. The things I wish I could have gone into today. Number 1 is design. And then just a quick statistic about this is that recent studies show that 75% of users determine the credibility of a website by its design. So if you have a design that looks old or out of date, or is not clean and easy to use, 3 out of 4 people are going to think your website may not be credible. Like it's a scam website, I didn't want to put my credit card information onto this website, that sort of thing. Skimmability, this used to be readability, actually, but nobody reads anymore, even me. Just like I said, I'd rather skim an article and watch video because that saves me time. The best thing you can do is make those articles more skimmable. And that means use headings and subheadings and break everything into sections, use bullet points, use those numbered lists. Make it easy for me to skim the page and get the information I need. Number 7 on the list would be accessibility. This one I left off because it is, in most cases, going to require a developer to fix accessibility issues. Because you want things in the code that are designed to help screen readers and people with disability to get information from your website. There is another link on your page for accessibilitychecker.org. Works like the other one. You enter your website, it's going to do a scan and tell you any accessibility problems you have. Although the Google stuff and the page speed, it does give you an accessibility score. This, despite requiring a developer, is something that you want to check for your website because it has, at least for larger companies, recently become a legal issue. U.S. courts have decided that your website counts as a place of business and needs to be as accessible to people as a brick and mortar building, which means you have to meet those ADA compliance standards moving forward. it's gonna just be a bigger issue. But that is, again, gonna take a developer and it would be like an entire hour lecture by itself to go over accessibility. And then the last thing is grammar. So just like bad design makes your website less credible, bad grammar does too. If you have a lot of typos, people are going to question your attention to detail. You not want to buy lawnmowers made by this company because they can't even spell the word lawnmower right. And then if your grammar itself is really bad, you start to sound like one of those scam emails from the Nigerian prince. And again, nobody's going to want to put their credit card information in. And then over time, just a little bit. A couple of tools. The big one I want to mention is BBB.org. This isn't just a shameless plug. They actually have a lot of tools. If you get your BBB profile right and your website uploaded on there, I get emails regularly from them that say things like, hey, we found all these misspelled words on your website. Now, some of them are like words like scalability that I just make up. That's not really a misspelled word. But some of them, like, there were a couple of misspellings that I can go through. It tells me what page they're on. And I can even go into the dashboard, and those words that aren't really misspelled, they're either like business jargon or something I had, or words that I made up on purpose. I can flag those so they don't check those next time. I get traffic reports. I get common website errors. Like it checks my SSL certificate, that's the thing that makes your website HTTPS instead of HTTP. Shows that little lock symbol, which is also an SEO thing. Google prefers HTTPS. So it just takes log in, takes a few minutes, you enter some information. There's all sorts of other good stuff, non-web related, that are on there as well. Google Analytics, which I mentioned, you need some sort of analytics on your website because you need to track what your visitors are doing to see if what you were doing is working. Google Ads. Now, I'm mentioning this one because I'm not recommending that you run Google Ads, but the Google Ads platform and the dashboard, they have a tool in there called Keyword Planner. And the Keyword Planner can help you, again, figure out what keywords people are searching for, how they're searching for those, and start kind of planning your content. And then finally, for any questions left, you can email me, and my email address is on that page, and I put the business cards up here if anybody wants one. And because we probably don't have a lot of time for questions today, are we hanging out after? This is why you didn't get 8 things. There's no way.